Tonight on Coyote News, the college Republicans and Democrats debated last week. We have the details.
Also, find out how foreign teachers are affected by their language barrier and the implications of changing your major.
We'll also have updates from the weekend in sports. First, headlines with Cassie Bartlett.
There was a bomb threat on campus Friday. The Volante reports the Arts and Sciences building was evacuated for 45 minutes. A male student noticed graffiti alluding to a bomb in the men's restroom. He took a picture of it and showed it to the A&S Associate Dean Emily Haddad. She immediately notified security, which led to the evacuation. University Relations Phil Carter says the UPD has concluded its investigation. The ACLU is investigating South Dakota's Department of Social Services. It wants to know if the state has been violating the Indian Child Welfare Act. The investigation stems from an NPR story that aired last week. It claims the state violates federal law by removing Native American children from their homes and inappropriately places them in foster care in exchange for more federal financial assistance. The ACLU says it's been receiving complaints for years, but the story has brought the issue back before the public. Deaths from painkiller overdoses have tripled in the last decade. In 2008, almost 15,000 people died from abusing prescription pain meds, and nearly 5% of Americans 12 and up say they've abused pain pills. Prescriptions rose as doctors improved patient treatments and as new meds hit the market. The CDC's Dr. Thomas Frieden says the stats reflect a spike in the number of prescriptions. He says there are enough pain pills made to supply every American for 1 month. And those are today's headlines.
College students will have more time and money thanks to new degree policies from the BOR. Coyote News' Josh Kapler has an update on the plan.
The Board of Regents has reduced the number of credits required to graduate from 128 to 120. But the new resolution doesn't apply to all USD students.
Students who are graduating this December in the spring of this year and through August 2012, we do not anticipate that there will be any change. Those who are planning to graduate more than a year from now are likely to be able to graduate under the new minimum, although they still would need to meet all of the requirements for their program.
The 120 credit degree is new to South Dakota, but most of the surrounding states have already reduced their credit hours.
And it's really intended to bring the state of South Dakota in line with the way that most states award degrees from public institutions. 120 hours has become the new norm. There are over 40 states that do it that way. So I think the regents were interested in bringing us both in line with what happens nationwide and really probably trying to save students a little bit of tuition money too.
Some may be able to save time and money, but the majority of current students will graduate with more credits than required.
For many students, it may mean a little less time in college, and it may also mean that they're spending a little bit less money on their college education. That said, currently many students do take more than 128 hours, even though 128 is the minimum. So I would be very surprised if this were a major change for most students.
Reporting for Coyote News, I'm Josh Kapler.
Last week, the Political Science League hosted a debate between the college Republicans and Democrats. Students debated education, taxes, and jobs, but left out one important issue.
Avoided the biggest issue of the election, which is going to be the $14 trillion debt. It seems like both parties are just avoiding the debt issue by dangling jobs in front of Americans' faces.
College Republican Josh Van Locken says the debate was fun, but it also was educational.
It's just more about getting people politically engaged and, also kind of keeping an open mind. I'm very glad that we had the attendance we did, and I guess just overall it was a kind of a treat to get to do this.
The more formal debate followed an informal dodgeball game between the Republicans and Democrats. There's no word on which team won.
The cold and flu season is just around the corner. When illness strikes students living away from home, the students can even be a little bit more difficult to deal with the season. This week on Live, Teresa Johnson talks with Rachel Swartine from Student Services about the benefits and options students have when they're feeling under the weather.
Many USD students don't know this, but student health services are there for them. One of these services is the flu shot clinic that is taking place tomorrow. Rachel, can you tell me a little bit about this flu shot clinic?
Sure, Teresa. We're actually having a flu shot clinic here on campus. It's going to be held in the Wellness Center from 5 to 7 tomorrow. If you're 18 and under, the flu shot's actually free. It's provided by the Department of Health. Otherwise, it's $20 for the injection and $25 for the mist.
Okay, and how does this compare to getting a flu shot at a clinic?
Sure. If you actually go to student health, the rate is $31 for the injection or $52 for the mist. So we do offer it at a significantly reduced price by coming to this event.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit about student health services in general, kind of how it works?
Sure. Student health basically is a discounted service for students. It's part of your general activity fees, so you're already paying about $50 a semester to use student health. The big thing that we like to stress about student health is that your office visit is free. So that typically is about $130 just to go to student health, and from the fees that you pay, that office visit is free. All the other services are either at a no cost or a reduced fee. A common one is like a strep throat. Let's say you have a really sore throat and you wanted to go check it out, see what it was. Just to do a rapid strep, that's actually free at no charge. And if you need to do a culture, a swab, that's $5. So, I mean, normally that probably costs you $60 just to get that test done. So it's a benefit to be a student and get those reduced prices.
Okay, and what would you say to the students who claim that if they go to student health services, they will be served at a slower rate than regular patients?
I would actually disagree that. It is true that student health is at the same clinic as the normal community. So you could be sitting by a pediatric and you could be sitting by your grandma. It just kind of depends on what doctor you're probably seeing. Some of our doctors have a really big schedule and see a lot of community patients. So it just depends. If you're there for maybe just an immunization or a titer, that's with the float nurse, so just kind of when the nurse can get you. So it's kind of perception. I don't believe that students are treated any differently than the community members.
Okay, and how many students usually utilize the student health services?
It's usually significantly increased during the school year. Right now, I think last month we saw about 700 students. The highest we see is probably about 950 students a month. Of course, it decreases during the school year, or during the summer. But
okay, well, thank you very much. Back to you.
Thanks, Teresa. Is USD really a suitcase college? We'll tell you what students are saying next. Halloween has come and gone for another year. Ghostly decorations have nearly disappeared as children young and old enjoy their trick-or-treat sweets.
That means it's time to take a look back at this year's costumes. Angelica Brackens is doing just that this week on Coyote Blog.
Thanks, Brianna. So another Halloween has come and gone. This year, my friends and I went as the Spice Girls. Of course, I was Scary Spice, the only black one. Go figure. Every year, I'm curious to see what costumes people come up with. What was the #1 costume this year? Lingerie. Funny how it seems to be that way every single year. Scariest costume was probably the 10-foot-tall Satan and his freakish little minion. Seriously, one of the creepiest things I've ever seen. Later on, I heard a rumor that it was an older couple. Ha! Show me an old man who can walk and dance in stilts. Also, I thought the Snooki costume was over with. I guess dressing up as a leather-skinned munchkin with huge kajungas and wearing furry boots will never be a tired Halloween costume. Another popular costume I saw was the Party Rock Crew. Ever heard of it? There were some really convincing ones too, complete with the froze, glasses, tight pants, and Party Rock robot. Note to self, if you plan on dressing up as a robot and have a box on your head, you're probably going to be very limited in how much you're going to be able to see. One minute I look up and see him dancing on some ledge, and the next minute I turn around and he's in the garbage can. One costume I greatly appreciated was a blank in a box. Just a couple of dudes in Goodwill suits, ugly undershirts, cheap gold chains, drawn-on mustaches, and chin straps, and boxes tied to their fronts. Gets a kick out of anyone who has seen the famous JT and Andy Samberg YouTube video. Next year, I'll go as something completely underdone, a ghost. For Coyote Blog, I'm Angelica Brackens.
Thanks, Angelica. Last week, students were asked if they thought USD is a suitcase campus. Some said yes, while others said no.
Coyote News' Diana Johnson tells us why there's not more agreement on this issue.
The idea that USD is a suitcase campus is somewhat debatable. Assistant Director of Student Life Lindsay Sparks says upperclassmen are more likely to say it isn't, while underclassmen will say it is.
The upperclassmen feel like it's not a suitcase campus because they have their niche on campus. They have their student organizations, they have their friends that they spend time with on the weekends, so they don't feel that need to go back home where it's more comfortable, I guess. And we are working with our first years and even our second years on building that comfort level and that sense of like, this is my home and wanting to be here all the time.
Movies at the Muck and tailgating are just a few of the events for students to do over the weekend. Sparks says students just have to take the initiative and get more involved with campus events and activities.
So a lot of it is just getting on the campus calendar or on the Red Informant, which is the new USD activities blog, and seeing what's going on. There's almost always something going on. A lot of it is just the students taking the time to reach out and find what might interest them.
With 30% of the freshman class originally from less than 50 miles away, it seems proximity might determine if they stay over the weekend.
I go home probably about twice a month or so because I live in Sioux Falls, so it's a convenient, short, easy 45-minute drive to see my family and friends that are back home.
I go home. I've only been home twice since college has started because I'm 5 hours away and it's a long trip home.
For Coyote News, I'm Diana Johnson.
About 20% of freshmen are 200 to 300 miles away from home, while 14% are up to 300 miles or more.
Up next, which USD professor has been named Teacher of the Year? Plus, USD student media is winning awards. Stay with us.
You might still be wondering what caused this summer's historic Missouri River flooding. Missouri River Institute Director Tim Cowman's discussing that next Wednesday at the University of Sioux Falls. His presentation focuses on causes, impacts, and post-flood policy. He's also introducing plans to reduce the impact of future floods. The Missouri River Institute is located on the USD campus. The 2011 South Dakota Vocal Arts Festival starts next week. The day-long event features more than 160 high school singers from the Quad State area. You can also catch performances from the USD Opera and Chamber Singers. The event starts at 8 a.m. It all happens next Thursday.
USD Media and Journalism students won big at the National College Media Convention in Orlando this week. The Volant received its 6th Pacemaker Award for being one of the nation's best college newspapers. The award honors the Volant for its coverage and content, quality in writing and reporting, and also their appeal. KYOT TV also won big at the convention. The situation comedy series Changing Majors won Best Comedy of the Year. It was produced by last semester's Directing for Video and Film students. Spanish professor Teresa Piper has been named the South Dakota World Languages Teacher of the Year. She was recognized for her enthusiasm and effectiveness in teaching. Piper was instrumental in developing the Spanish tutoring program at USD. She's a native of Mexico City and has been teaching here since 2002. Stay with us. A Coyote athlete's training for Olympic trials. Haley Meyer and Cassie Bartlett have details next in sports.
Sports, find out which USD athlete is training for the Olympics.
And in addition to learning about how the men's basketball team is preparing for the season, Kyle Miller is surprised by last weekend's upsets. But first, Cassie Bartlett has sports headlines.
Thanks, Haley. In their first Summit League championship, the USD cross-country teams both earned 5th place finishes. Sophomore Jeff Metler led the men's team, finishing 5th in individual standings. He also earned first-team all-conference honors. Junior Jessica Branley paced the women with a 16th place finish. Southern Utah took first in the men's standings, and North Dakota State earned the title in the women's. The St. Louis Cardinals won their 11th World Series title Friday, defeating the Rangers 6-2. 3 Cards earned 2 runs in the game. The Cardinals forced Game 7 after earning a comeback victory in Game 6. St. Louis trailed 7-4 in the 7th inning Thursday night, but fought back and won in extra innings. The Vikings earned their 2nd victory of the season on the road Sunday against the Panthers. It was a battle to the end, with the game tied through the first 3 quarters. Minnesota kicker Ryan Longwell hit a 31-yard field goal with under 3 minutes remaining to seal the deal. The Vikings have a bye week this week before traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers November 14th. That's it for sports headlines.
The most decorated woman swimmer in USD history has 64 career wins and 13 school records. Now she's training for the Olympic trials.
Last season, I hit a time in my 50 freestyle, which put me 3/10 away from the Olympic trial cut. I looked on the computer probably 20 different times and finally texted my coach and was like, is this right? Am I really that close? And he said, yeah, you are. We might have to have a talk after season. It had always been kind of a dream, but I never really thought that I could make it into a reality. But getting that close really made me realize that if I focused and I got myself motivated and I started working on the little things, 0.3 of a second might just come off like that.
Hoffman's biggest support team is her family.
I mean, I've been swimming since I've been 4. I'm a 21-year-old. That's a long time to have kept to one sport. And it's just because my parents have just always inspired me to just have fun and do my best. My mom started the swim team. She coached me all the way until I was a senior in high school, and then I came here. And since I've been here, I could not be happier that I've had Jason as a coach. Now that I'm sitting here as a senior and I look at the times that I've achieved, the records that I've achieved, I'm so thankful that I kept swimming, and a big part of that is to Jason.
I knew from day one if we got her to commit and got her to do the work she needed to do, that Olympic trials was something that she was more than capable of doing.
Training-wise, it hasn't really changed, but I think my mentality has changed more than anything. I still lift 3 times a week. I swim 6 days a week. But it's really the little lifestyle changes that I've made that I think have made a bigger impact in my training.
Since the age of 6, Hoffman's wanted to compete in the Olympic trials.
For me, I really just want to make the trials. My chances of going to the Olympics, I mean, it's not realistic for me. So just getting to the trials is my ultimate goal.
For Coyote Sports, I'm Jelan Doom.
Over 1,200 swimmers are expected to compete at the Olympic trials on June 25th in Omaha. USD football suffered a surprising defeat Saturday, losing 27-24 to Cal Poly. The Coyotes had a secure 17-0 lead at halftime, but the Mustangs fought back and outscored the Yotes 27-7 in the final 2 quarters. Starting quarterback Dante Warren left the game early in the second half with an injury and didn't return. Senior Adam Broders led the defense with 18 tackles, and junior Marcus Sims rushed for a total of 54 yards on offense. The Coyotes have a bye week this week, so they'll be getting some much-needed rest. They're back in action November 12th at the Dakota Dome for Senior Day. Coyote basketball is hosting its annual Media Day tomorrow in the Muck. Men's basketball coach Dave Boots says this first year in the Summit League will be a learning experience.
It's a good league. It's had some history to it recently of some really good teams. Oakland's had a great run the last few years and been in the NCAA tournament. And we know on the top side it's been really good. Oakland, Oral Roberts, IUPI, very good. And then obviously North Dakota State and South Dakota State, we have some history with those 2 programs, and they're both very strong right now. So it's going to be a learning experience for us, something we're going to have to get in, see where we stack up, see what adjustments we have to make, and try to learn on the go and learn in a hurry.
Senior guard Louis Krogman says every night will be a challenge, but they're looking to win games and compete. On this week's Miller Zone, Kyle Miller thinks the world of sports has gone mad.
In case you haven't heard, there's a big college football game on Saturday, as in really big, the biggest game of the year. Number 1 ranked LSU travels to Tuscaloosa to take on number 2 Alabama. It's the most hyped game of the year so far, one that college football fans have been looking forward to for months. This game is so monumental that CBS was able to strike a deal with the devil, I mean ESPN, to move the game to primetime. Now I'm torn on who will win this showdown. Alabama has steamrolled its opponents this year, and LSU has some good quality wins versus Oregon and West Virginia. The game's in Tuscaloosa though, so I'll get the edge to the Tide late. Hopefully the actual matchup on the gridiron will match the hype of the game. Speaking of college football, what the heck happened on Saturday? USD blows a 17-point halftime lead. The Hawkeyes lose to the lowly Roden Gophers again. SDSU wins in double overtime. And Iowa State wallops a ranked team on the road. If I didn't know any better, I'd say a particular place way down south is frozen over. If anybody says that they saw these results coming, well, they're lying. You couldn't script this. And neither could you script this year's World Series. I'll give props to my colleague Jerry Pelesci. He called David Freese's hometown heroics in Game 6. What a turnaround for the Cardinals. The Rangers were one strike away from being world champs twice, and the Cards found a way to extend the game both times. St. Louis flat out dominated Game 7, and the Rangers have the dubious distinction of losing back-to-back World Series. This one's going to sting in Dallas-Fort Worth for quite a while. Needless to say, it was a wild weekend in sports, and the craziness is sure to continue. For the Miller Zone, I'm Kyle Miller.
Thanks, Kyle. And that's all for Coyote Sports. Coming up next, Coyote News commentator John Hines has some advice for getting around campus faster.
Getting to class on time can be tricky. That's especially true if you're walking and get slowed down by other pedestrians.
John Hines has some helpful hints on how to avoid getting held up on this week's commentary.
As you walk through the sidewalk jungles of USD, you're likely to come upon several species of walkers. Each walker has its own distinct characteristics, and if you learn to identify those characteristics, you can avoid the dangers these walkers present. Now let's go find us some walkers. The slow walker, or ambulus minimus, will inhibit your ability to get to class on time by walking in front of you at a snail's pace. Coyote!
It's unknown if the slow walker has no concept of timeliness or if the slow walker simply doesn't have class.
The wide walker, or obstructus mobilis, is a group of slow walkers that span the entire width of a sidewalk, thus inhibiting all traffic. It may be necessary to go over or around the wide walkers in order to continue. Lost in the abyss of Lady Gaga, the iPod walker can't even hear your request to move out of the way. Tragic. So as you traverse campus, be aware of the different species of walkers, so that you might reach your destination quickly and safely. For Coyote Commentary, I'm John Hines.
As you're walking, keep an eye out for combination walkers, slow iPod walkers, wide slow walkers, and the trifecta, slow wide walkers listening to their iPods. On this week's Out and About, what do students think about lower credit requirements?
Yeah, I could see pros and cons on both sides of the argument. I could see it's a good thing students have to pay less money to get out of college and graduate. They can get into whatever they're going into faster. I could also see it possibly being negative for students who don't think they're ready to be out so early, or they think they need more time.
I think it's good because then the students are going to get out of college faster and start their jobs, and it requires less money that they have to spend.
Students are going to have to pay less, but also students are allowed to kind of focus on their classes, focus on their majors rather than take so many electives.
To be honest, I think that it holds our students to a lower standard. When I think of USD as a university at the college level, I think that staying at 128 would have been more beneficial.
I think it'll be good because less people will be stressing to get all of it in the 4 years that they want to graduate.
It's just the difference between 3 courses, but I don't really think it makes that much of a difference, although now that kids, when they come to school here, they can just consistently take 15 credits each semester without having to try to fit in too much.
Honestly, I'm kind of annoyed by it because I'm going to graduate next December and it doesn't actually apply to me. And I really wish that they had done it a lot sooner because that would mean that I would be graduating this spring and not in December.
Your taste buds have spoken. Chick-fil-A, Taco Bell, and Panda Express could be coming to the Muck. Find out more in the award-winning Volant, which hit newsstands today. Even more stories can be found online at volantonline.com. You can also check out the Coyote News link on the page. And that's all for Coyote News. Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Twitter.
Have a great night and a good weekend. We'll see you next time.